we were at that celebration. We were at that celebration of life yesterday, and it got me thinking a lot of things. And actually, I woke up this morning. I had a message that I printed out like Wednesday or Thursday, and I got up this morning, and that wasn't it. So I don't like that. I have the introduction. The text I was going to use is different, and he gave it to me after I got to church here this morning. Thing is that we have to be excited about where God's got us, what He's asking us to do. That celebration of life was I think it's the first one I've ever been to like that, and I've done a lot of funerals in my life, a lot of funerals, and there's a way to do a funeral, but then there's a way to celebrate a believer's life. And when you do a funeral for someone that the family maybe didn't know Christ or they didn't know Christ, it's a tough funeral. But yesterday, as I cried through this celebration of life, remembering Deb, remembering what God had done in her life and how she had touched our lives, and I listened to Pastor Mark teach and teach on his own in his own wife's celebration of life. I was amazed because it was about what God will do in us and through us. And what we're after this year, and I guess I'm going to be like a broken record all year. I'm sorry. No, I'm not. And there's going to be times, and Debbie, I heard somebody say it a little while ago, there are going to be times when you're going to feel like, I hated that message by Pastor Bob. I may have already thought that before. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. But the thing is that you may walk out of here mad. You may walk out of here, well, how can he say that of us? Well, I'm going to tell you what, we got to rattle the cages. I sat next to an old friend of mine at the luncheon afterwards, and he was one of my small group leaders at another church, and he was actually the best small group leader I've ever met. And he had a group that was rivaled most churches. He had his small group, mind you. Small groups you should have at the maximum maybe 12 people. That's 6 couples or 12 people or whatever. That should be your max. His went from 25 to 30 every week, and we had him every week. And his were all new believers, and all the other group leaders were supposed to be what we taught was teach. You listen to the pastor's message on Sunday, and you devour it, and then you spew it out to the people that are that night, because they've heard the same message already. It's an opportunity for you to really have good dialogue. Well, he taught new stuff every week because he was teaching new believers, and these people were on fire for God. And there were some people in the church that thought he was trying to start a church. He wasn't trying to start a church. He was just being obedient to the Holy Spirit. As we start these groups this Thursday, we got a theme. It's whatever chapters we're reading that month. That's what the theme is. And you could take, you group leaders, those that are in here, Rob and Kimber in the back, but you take whatever you have gleaned over the last 7 chapters, and you teach on it Thursday night. Now, those of you that have been assigned to groups, because I tried to do it geographically, and that's the reason why they are where they are. Now, the thing is that don't miss the group. Don't miss the group, because the groups are going to be something good. I've never had small groups that weren't good. We started this church technically with a small group on Wednesday nights. And we'd eat together, we'd have fellowship together. Dina would want to spend the night. Seriously, she would stay after she would just stay after, and she would just go. One of the lines that I remember the most is she sat there one night and she goes, "Where has this been for the last 20 years?" And that's along that line. All my life, or something like that. It's like, and it wasn't like she hadn't been in church. It wasn't like she wasn't a believer. It was just all this fresh stuff coming at you. And when you have that ability to gather together and share, it's so much more. That's what I like. I actually am liking this setup more and more. Why? Because we are becoming a different church. We're different than others. And I'm not parading that out and being proud of it. I'm not, but we're approaching difference here. Teaching you how to get around. When I worked at WCIC back in the 80s, when Rick Hoover hired me, he says, "Here's what I want." He says, "When you go on air, I want you to talk like you're talking to somebody across the kitchen table." And that's what we have to get ourselves ready to do, is talk to people across our kitchen table. Talk to people across their living room. And that's what I think this setup sort of takes me back to those days of being reminded that what we've got is intimate, important, and will change a life beyond measure. I think about the base program. I think about what Gail and Rob have done 14 years now? 21 years. Again, I'm not trying to, but I want you to see the big picture. They went into it with 20 kids, and it wasn't they had a scope of this is 20 kids, and we'll probably, who knows, next year. And it just kept growing, and they have a panoramic vision of what they see. And if you look at 21 years of children, when they come in, what average age is what, 10? Six. Okay, 6 years old. So it's for 21 years. That means those kids in that first year program, how old are they? In their late 20s. Guess what they're doing in their late 20s? They're starting families. They're starting their careers. Think about the process. And that's what we have to look at, beloved. We have to look at what our lives impact outside of these four walls. That's what changes the world. What we do in here is important. And what you've done in here over the past 15 years of this church is important. Because you prepared yourself for now. We're right now. That's my message is this is my time. Part 2. This is my time. It's our time, beloved. I know Jeff just got back from skiing. He's out there with Amanda. They're having a good time. I think Paris is I think it's a good playoff. I really do. The thing is that
He said boring. There's nothing boring. All the architecture and history.
Anyway. Sorry, Jeff. The thing is that he got excited about going out there. I mean, Sarah was going to be a little late taking the airport to Peoria. With his plane got canceled in Peoria, and they had to drive to Chicago, so she wasn't there last week. But they got to the destination. Why? Because there was a vision of where he wanted to go, what he wanted to do, and he knew exactly every part of the process. The thing is that's the same thing we have to do. You know, there's nothing different in that than in what we're supposed to be doing as believers. We're supposed to have a vision. That's why that board's important. That's why I told Debbie, I said, well, share our vision today. Share what we're after this year. You know, because it's important for you to see and look at every vision in there, but I think it's probably really important to see what I'm thinking, where I'm wanting to go. This week, I don't know. I know it's my last week of preaching for the next 3 weeks, but I don't know what after that. The thing is that what God's doing in this place is unique. And I'm not putting any other church. I heard Pastor Randy Hall teach yesterday. I heard Pastor Mark Utek teach yesterday. I've heard Pastor Mike. There's some good preachers in this area. There's some good churches in this area. But what God's called us to here is different. And now it's time to kick it to the next level. Turn me over to Matthew chapter 5. 2 weeks ago, because Pastor Joe delivered a dynamic message last Sunday, but 2 weeks ago I started this process of this is my time. And I used Matthew 5, and I used the first part about this is the salt. And when I walked out here, I thought, did I get across what I was after? Because being salt, he makes, again, just for a recap, he makes a statement, you are the salt of the earth. And then he goes on and asks questions. He asks questions of us that we have to answer, that we have to find the answer to. And I have been pressing in my own life lately, especially since last November. I've been pressing in and after God had given me the vision for this year, but in November, when that happened to me, I said, you know, I want things different. I want it fresh. And every time I turn around, something's coming at me, reminding me of the way I was, and it's not that I want to go back to where I was. I want to be greater than I was. But I'm proud of what I did. I'm proud of where we came from, and I know you are too. But we can't live and rest on our laurels. We can't live and rest in what we used to be like or what we've done. We've got to keep moving forward, and that's what this year is about, beloved. Is moving forward every step of the way. You know, Ashley's the newest graduate in here, I think, right? You're the last college graduate we've got in here as a nurse, but you're back in school, starting March. But she can't, and a reason why, like in her case and in any profession, they keep going because you can't just stop because, well, I arrived, I'm here, I'm a nurse. No, they have to continue to study. They have to continue to move forward. But when she started nursing school, there was some fear there. She was concerned. Can I do this? And we all knew. We were all there. We rallied around and said, "No, you're going to get this done. It's going to be quicker than you think." And when she graduated, it was all of a sudden all that stuff that she had done in the past didn't affect her anymore. Now she's got that new venture, and now she's excited, going on to get another degree in nursing. Why? Because it's caused something in her to stir up. She remembers the study. She remembers all the tedious part, but she also looks at the joy that came out of that. In Matthew chapter 5, verses 14 through 16, Jesus goes on to say, "You're the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all that are in the house. Let your life so shine before men that they see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven." Now, Jesus isn't teaching this to the Sadducees. He's not teaching this to the elite of Jerusalem. He's not teaching it to people that, hey, yeah, that's right, I'm the light. He's teaching it to normal, ordinary people. Hear what I'm saying. This passage here of Matthew, it's the Sermon on the Mount. He's teaching it to just common people that don't have even there was probably hundreds out there that they just happened by. They're just sitting there. They don't know, they've heard of Jesus, but now they're hearing for the first time. But he's telling them, you're the salt. You're the light. You're what's going to change this world. Now, if they go out of there, and they went out of there and they changed the world in which they live, shouldn't we be about the same business? Again, it popped up in my head today. Maybe I just need to preach my message on it's the Father's business. I know it's Rob's favorite message I've ever taught. The thing is that we have to be about the Father's business. I'm going to get to in a minute what the conversation I had with my friend yesterday, and what sort of drove this morning when I woke up to head there. They were, that group of people had no idea what life was going to be like. They had no idea what God wanted for them totally. You do. You know what the Word says. You know that He says that we're to be going out and changing the world. We're not supposed to just come to church and think we've done it for the week. And there's a lot of, I'm not saying we are, but let me say this morning. If you have gotten into the mindset, say, well, I did my time, I went to church this morning, we're all good to go. That's not it. That's not what it's about. Being in church is only your filling station, as they've said. It's just like I looked at the car, and I don't know where she goes all the time, but every time I turn around, I got to fill up the car. But I looked at the car gas tank this morning as we're driving. I thought, well, I got to stop and get gas on the way home. Otherwise, she'll be crying tomorrow, and it'll probably be like 35 below, and I have to go get gas. The thing is that we go to a gas station to fill up our car so we can get where we want to go, right? Well, that's what church is about. It's just filling up our tank so we're prepared to do what we're supposed to do all week. Because that's all this is today. It's a gas station. We've heard what God's doing in the base program. We've heard what God's doing in so many lives and how He's changing us. We're going to hear in a little bit about with communion. She's going to talk about communion. She's going to talk about the healing process, I'm sure, because she didn't even get into that this morning. She took 2 hours preaching, but she didn't get to that part of it yet. The thing is that all those things, we go away from this place, and that's the reason why we've asked you. We've set up books up so you can write down notes. Why? Because you've got to go out of here remembering something that changed your life, something that was enough that is stuck in your head to where when you're out there this week, that's your piece of information to share with somebody else. It's important that we take away from this place on Sunday mornings, on Thursday nights, and I'll share with you, we're going to have another thing coming up sometime later this year. I'm not sure when we're going to start it, but it's going to be called The Well. And it's going to be on Tuesday nights. And it's going to be in a small group. It's going to be in groups. Because small groups will change your life. And The Well is all about coming together. I won't get to it, but you all know what happened at the well, right? When Jesus met the woman at the well. She changed. Things in her life were spoke and changed, and she went out and she became the first evangelist, really, in Jesus' lifetime. And she went out and taught people. She brought people back. And that's, beloved, that's what it's about. This ladies' luncheon, it's a blessing. It's a move of God. It's an outreach. It's a opportunity to share with people in a way that they will walk away Saturday afternoon and their lives will be changed. Some will give their lives to Jesus Christ this Saturday, and that has to be our prayer. That has to be our goal. But some will walk away, and it may take a few days. It may take a few weeks. It may take a year. But the seed planted this coming Saturday on restoration is going to change every person's life, including the believer. We don't just exclude. We're going to get all these people. You need to go to the meeting and come away with something too. You need to come away from it and be challenged, be charged up, and ready to do something. So this luncheon this week, how many people are total be there? 5 guys and 50 women. 51. Count the guys. All of us. And we get to overhear what's going on sometimes. I remember when Sarah taught one year. And Jeff was there. He helped that year for some reason. I'm not sure what happened since. But she taught one year. And as she taught, Jeff is like, he's at the doorway. We try to stay out of it, but we can hear. And he's at the door. He's listening because he wants to hear what she has to say. Why? Because when we walk away from this Saturday afternoon, all of us need to walk away with something different in us. Something changed in us. Let alone the people that are there that don't know Christ, that maybe just have a marginal understanding of Christ. I know some of the ladies that are coming, and they say they're Christians, but their lifestyle is different than what you and I live. Well, it's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to live it. And we have to be about teaching people how to live it. And that's what Jesus is saying here. You're the light. You're the light of the world. We have an opportunity to illuminate this whole surrounding area. That's what the small groups are about on Thursday nights, the third Thursday night of every month. Inviting people that are not just from the church. Okay, I assign people here, but your responsibility is to get somebody else there with you. It's an opportunity to get them into an environment where they're going to learn something that's very non-threatening. There's a lot of people who won't come into a church, but they'll come to your home. They'll come and be a part of that. And when they come to be Jerry was the one that had the 25 to 30 people every week. And all they were was somebody would say, hey, you need to come to this Bible study we have on Friday nights. Hey, you need to come. And all of a sudden it went from 5 or 6 people to 25 to 30 every week. Some of them would drop off, somebody else would come in. The thing is that seeds were planted. Seeds were planted. Every kid that goes through the base program, seed is planted. And that seed's going to prosper sometime. Okay? And that's what you have to look at. It doesn't matter whether you see it right now. It doesn't matter whether you see it in 10 years. But it's good. The seed that was planted, it took 10 years almost I was 10 when I cried out to God. And I was 27 when I gave my life totally to God. But in the process, at 18, I said a sinner's prayer. But it still took 18 to 27. If we just went that 9 years, it took 9 years for that seed at 18 to prosper in my life. And I could go through many of you. I know many of you well enough. That's the downside and the upside of being a pastor. I know you. And I could speak to you. I could pick on you, and then you go out here. Why does he pick on me all the time? So I stay with Bree. She doesn't do that. Okay? But, I mean, I will for a moment. Sheila will. She saw that coming. She said, I knew he was going to come over here. The thing is that Sheila, being Deb's younger sister and around us all the time, when we got saved, she saw the change in Deb and I. But it took a while for Sheila to come to Christ. It was not like all of us. It was like me. It wasn't an immediate transfer over. Some people it is. Dave Gibbs on the back there, he got saved. Boom. It was immediate change. Immediate transformation. Me, it took 9 years. Sheila, it probably took around that same amount of time. Vince, it was a struggle too. I mean, I could speak to them, their families, so I know I could speak about them. They're not going to hate me, right? They were in our wedding, okay? The thing is that, but look at where they're at today. It's not where they were. It's not where the struggle they had. It's where are they at today. And the thing is that's what you have to look at. Everybody you talk to is you're the light in their life. Deb and I approached it in the beginning. It was we made some mistakes. There's a friend of mine from childhood that probably still doesn't want to serve God because of the way I approached it in the beginning. But I haven't. My finger's still out of that family. And the thing is that he's struggling. He's struggling with a disease. He's struggling with it, Rob. He's losing the battle. because he doesn't have the faith that Rob has. He doesn't have the words to speak. Well, that's not how I believe, and the word to stand on. The thing is that we're the light of the world. We have to change people. That's our responsibility, is to get them into, we can't change, but put them in a position of change in their life. That's what the light is. He goes on to say, he says, a city set on a hill you can't be hidden. What's going on in your life can't be hidden unless you choose to put it under a basket. That's what he said. If you choose to do it, he says, but people don't light a house like that. Well, think about it. He used the illustration of a candle under a basket. First off, you can have a bigger fire. Let's be honest, okay? It's not going to be a little candle anymore. Pretty soon the whole house is going to be burning down. The thing is, he says, no, they put it on a lamp stand so everybody gets illuminated. We've been sleeping in our guest room now for the last month. Our guest room has been divided now. And it's partly my office and partly our guest room. So we've got the bed changed, and I have a lamp that's a touch lamp that has 3 cycles to it. And so I don't necessarily, we go to bed at the same time. I don't necessarily go to sleep at the same time she does, because by the time she hits the bed, covers up. Okay? The thing is that I'll turn on the lamp. Now she'll have her back to the lamp. And the lamp was on when she went to bed. But something will change and she'll move. She'll, do you have to have the light on all night? It's not even all night. It's been like a half hour. The thing is that light shines and illuminates the whole room. And it's bright enough at night that third stage does illuminate the whole room. But I'm reading, and I don't want to read in the dark. I'm not Abraham Lincoln where you read in the dark. I don't want to read by candlelight. But the thing is, you light something in the house so that everybody can have an opportunity to enjoy the light. Well, so he says, but the light gives light to all in the house. And he goes on to say this, let your light so shine before men. He said, in other words, don't hide it. Don't try to hide it. When you get an opportunity like Joe and Sue, and I'm serious, I admire their ability to just all of a sudden be in the conversation that's evangelistic. I admire that. Because I have to tell you, that's not the way I used to be. But I'm more and more like, my counseling sessions are like that all the time now. I go in, and there's times where I really don't want to go do counseling anymore. I was like, God, why do you call me into this? But I love it. Once I get there, I'm good. I love it. And God just starts pouring through me things. And that's how I go in. I say, well, you've got to give me the words, Lord, because there's no book in this room worthy of what you can do to change a life. There's nothing that I have learned in college or seminary that will change a life greater than your word. Now, I was fortunate. I went to Bible college and seminary, so I was studying the word. But the text that we had to study on human psychic and all that stuff, that's just standard stuff. The thing is that what God's word in me, working out of me to those clients, will change those clients. I've seen it time and time again. The same opportunities you have is when you sit down at the table. Listen, when you sit down at the table to eat your supper with your family. Now, some of us, it's just Deb and I, so we're just chatting back and forth. But like Jeff and Sarah, they got 3 little ones. I know they're diligent about what they do. Bree and Aaron, they got 4 or 5. You got 4? Rob and Crystal are going to have a 4th. And I know the thing is that when our kids were younger, we would talk about the things of God with them. Maybe not to the level that we needed to, because maybe at that point we hadn't grown to the point we needed to grow. But there's still an opportunity when you sit down to eat with your family. That's the time. One of the things I used to love about reading about, I know they're Democrats, but they were good Democrats at the time. The Kennedys, is that his father, they would sit down. Everybody was required to eat 1 meal a day with them. In other words, they do a family dinner. And his dad, Joseph Kennedy, would say, he would go around the table from the very oldest Joe to the very youngest Teddy and ask them about the day-to-day stuff. And they came to the table to talk about politics, about things like that, because he was training them in the direction he wanted them to go as adults. Now, as adults, as adults, every one of them, better or worse, were either in politics or some sort of in charge of some. The Special Olympics was started by one of the Kennedy sisters. I don't remember which one it was, Eunice or one of them, because they had a sister that had issues. So, but he taught them then. Well, what we have to do with our kids, with our families, is teach them the way we want them to go. Whether it be your grandkids, whether it be your children, you teach them the way you want them to go so that they, when they grow up, just like the base program, when they grow up and they're out there, they have an opportunity to change the world. So I've been at the base program. I know Jeff's been at the base program. Several of you have been there at times. And it's an opportunity that goes on there that changes the world. You know, so you let your light shine before men that they may see your what? What does it say? They may see your what? Nobody. Good works. Oh, wait a minute. I know we're passing the baby around. Everybody, nobody, no, nobody's listening anymore once the baby hits the floor. The thing is that they see your good works. In other words, what he's saying there is, once the word is in you, once you realize that you are the salt, once you realize you are the light, the word is enough in you and should be coming at you. They see things in you that they haven't seen in other people, that they haven't experienced in other people. And he goes on to say, and they glorify who? They glorify the Father. I don't do what I do to glorify Bob Martin. There are times where I'm sure God's not glorified in what I've done. I guarantee, I'm almost positive of that. Okay, I know that there's sermons that he heard me saying. He said, "Why did you even get up there and say anything?" The thing is that what I'm after, everything I do, is to glorify God, to give Him the glory, to give Him the honor, because that's where it belongs. Somebody comes in, "Oh man, that was really a great sermon," or whatever. Or they come up and you said something, or you maybe said the right words somewhere, and they come up and say, "That's great." Well, give glory to who it belongs. It was God that worked through you. It was God that did the things in you, and it will change them. It will change you. We turn me over to Hebrews chapter 10. I'm going to spend the next hour on Hebrews chapter 10. I was going to Ephesians after I got through that bit there, and that was not even any of my introduction. So you say he was nice to us. He didn't go through the whole introduction. But I was going to go through 3 different passages of Ephesians, I thought, and that got changed this morning. And it got changed really last night or yesterday afternoon because of one passage a friend of mine said to me. And we're going to get to that passage, but we've got to get through Hebrews chapter 10. We're going to look at, let's just start at verse 1. For since the law has but a shadow of the good things to come instead of the true form of realities, it can never, by the same sacrifices that were continually offered every year, make perfect those who draw near. In other words, I believe Paul wrote this book. What Paul is saying is that the old things are set aside. Now, we've all lived long enough to realize that there was a day where the 10 Commandments were posted on the walls of schools, and they were out in front of public buildings, and this, that, and the other. And our society has changed in such a manner that there's a fight. Who's winning the battle right now is the atheist. Why? Because the Christians are letting their light be hid. Let's just be honest. The reason why the battle is being won by the other side right now, the reason why we have such torment in our country right now, is because the church is shut up. Whether you like him or not doesn't matter to me, but Donald Trump went into the churches when he was running for president and said, "Why have you let them shut your mouth?" That's a good question. That's a good question. Why have you let them shut your mouth? Well, that could be asked of us, why do we let the people at work shut our mouth? Why do we hear the person across the room just tear down the things of God and we don't say nothing? I'm not asking you to get in a fight or debate. That's not what it's about. But there's an issue of we need to start voicing ourselves. We need to start putting the words that are in us on our lips so they come out with an understanding and an anointing, with the light that will shine and open up to the darkness in the place you work, to the darkness in the place that we shop, to the darkness in our society. It's time for the church to step up and say, no more. From now on, that's not happening anymore. That's what I love about having Jeff on the school board here, is that it was tough the first couple of years. I mean, you could see it on their face. Jeff and Sarah's face, like, oh no, we got another board meeting. But not anymore. Why? Because he's gone through that. So there were people that attacked him simply because he was a believer. No other reason other than he was a believer. They attacked him and attacked him and attacked him. He didn't back down. He stood his ground. He let his light shine. Well, what happens when you let your light shine? It illuminates people And they don't know what to do with the light. It's like Debbie. Well, you have to have the light on all night long. The thing is that she gets used to it. I used to sleep with the TV on. You sleep with the radio on. I don't do that anymore, but now I have a headset. The thing is that when you let your light shine, it changes the atmosphere in which you're at. And what Paul is saying here, the atmosphere has changed. He said the old ways of doing things are no more. Well, however we used to do it, that maybe wasn't successful for us, those days are no more. It's time for us to get a hold of new ways and new ways of doing things. And he goes on here to say, otherwise would you have ceased, verse 2, otherwise would you have ceased to be offered, since the worshipers, having once been cleansed, would no longer have any consciousness of sins. But in these sacrifices there were a reminder of sins every year. He said that the sacrifices, what they were doing is reminding, it's like going to an AA meeting. I've had clients, they come in and they say, well, I'm an alcoholic. I said, when was the last time you drank? Well, 30 years ago. You're not an alcoholic anymore. But you go to an AA meeting, you stand up, hi, I'm Bob, I'm an alcoholic. I haven't drank in 55 years, but I'm still an alcoholic. That's what they want you to remind you of, who you were in the past. Don't live in your past failures. Don't live in your past mistakes. Get a hold of a brand new thing today, and get a hold of what God, he's saying that for it is impossible for the blood of bulls and goats to take away sins. He goes on to say there is a bigger sacrifice been made for you. He drops on down. We're not going to read through all that. There's a bigger sacrifice been made, and that sacrifice changed your life. It changed my life. We don't have to worry about the sins of our past because they're not present anymore. Drop on down to, let's drop it down. Verse 12 says, but when Christ had offered for all time a single sacrifice for sins, he sat down at the right hand of God. Jesus came. He did what he needed to do, and it was a struggle, wasn't it? Let's be honest with that. He came, he was diligent about everything, but when it came down to that last bit, that last threshold, that last tough person, that last tough obstacle, he struggled. There's got to be an easier way, God. Can't you change your direction? There's got to be, sometimes when God's telling you to go talk to somebody that has been, Debbie's talking about that person that she works with. It is never easy to talk to the most obnoxious person that you run into. I was at a basketball game last night. This is not a good example, but I'm going to use it. I didn't get kicked out. I don't yell at refs anymore. But there was a guy behind us. We played at a local school. And there was a guy sitting behind us, and we sit behind the bench. And this guy is rooting for the other team. And I'm listening to it. I'm thinking, what is he doing sitting behind me? Why? And so I just turned around. I sort of laughed. I said, you're sort of at the wrong end of the gym, aren't you? He said, he said something. It was snide back. So then he decided every time their team made a basket, right in my ears. Now I'm thinking, Bob, do not. And then my conscience. You know you're better than that. You shouldn't have said that. What? Our team won. But before our team finished off the game, he was out of there. And all I wanted to do was at the end game say, well, see, it wasn't doing good to sit behind me yet clapping really. But I wanted to say one last thing, but God kept me clean of that, right? But in my mind I'm going, that's just... Huh? Yeah, Debbie did. The thing is that I wanted to... but in the back of my head I was going, that's just a typical Pekin fan. Oh, that's... The thing is that I wanted to say it, but the thing is there's certain things you say, certain things you don't. But I'm confessing. This is church, right? We don't have a confessional booth, but I can still confess, right? And you can learn from my mistakes. That's your job, to learn from what I did wrong, learn from what I did right also. But he's saying here, Jesus said there was but Jesus was asking God, there's got to be a better way. But because God never responded, yeah, we can do it this way. Jesus said, not my will, Father, but yours be done. And so when you run into that obstacle, you really don't want to talk to that person. You really don't want to. God's way of doing it is the right way. And the thing is that you will change a life by just doing it the right way. Not like I did last night. 15, verse 15. The Holy Spirit also bears witness to us after saying, "This is the covenant that I will make with them. In those days, declares the Lord, I will put my laws on their hearts and write them on their minds." Beloved, you have everything you need already. I was listening to the foundations this morning. I was listening to Darlene talking more than ever in there. It's a good thing. She's talking about a lady at where she works, a parishioner that comes in there. And she comes in and she's always frowning, grouchy. And Darlene started sending her smiley cards, right? Now, here's another thought for you. If you ever get a chance to help Darlene's ministry out, slip her some money on a Sunday morning. Here, this is for you, for your smiley card ministry. Because it does cost money to buy stamps, cards, the whole thing. Anyway, and she just doesn't send them to us. She sends them all over. And I still haven't heard back from Pastor Chuck. I will let you know. The thing is that she sends them all over. And it changed. After a while, this lady started coming in, smiling and talking to Darlene. And it was because the first time she sent out, the lady said, "Why are you sending me that card?" Because I can. I love Darlene's answer, because I can. It was a great answer, because I can. And the thing is that it changed the lady over a period of time. You may not get to where you need to go the first time talking to that person, but the object is you made that first step. Because Jesus made that first step at the cross. He didn't get to you and me right away, but he got to us. And he's getting to thousands and thousands and thousands more. When we get to heaven and we get to see our old friends and our loved ones, that's not all that's going to be there. We're going to want to know, we're going to want to see them, and we're hoping they're right at the gate, welcome us in. But there's going to be hundreds of thousands of other people. There's going to be people that you didn't know you touched, as Debbie said, that you didn't know you touched, but they're going to be there. You partook in the base program. You partook in this. You did that. I know that in Dave's ministry over the years, that he's ministered to hundreds. And there are going to be people that he's going to see in heaven that he didn't realize how he touched them. He didn't realize that. Why? Because that's just the way it works. You got to sow the seed, and sometimes you get to water the seed, and sometimes you get to be there for the harvest. He goes on to say here, he says, then he adds, I will remember their sins and their lawless deeds no more. In other words, there's a finish to what you used to be, if you let it be finished. There's a finish to it. Drop on down to verse 22. Let us draw near to the true heart in full assurance of faith, with our hearts sprinkled clean from any evil conscience in our bodies, washed with pure water. Let us hold fast to the confession of our hope without wavering, for he promised to be faithful. When God says, I'm going to do this through you, that's what we're after today. He's going to do this through you because it's your time. It's your time to see things change. It's your time to first see things change in your life, and then it's your time to see things change in those that you meet wherever you go. He says, I'm going to, because he's faithful enough to do those things to us. Now, verse 24 says this, and let us consider how to stir up one another to love and what? Good works. Let us consider how to stir. That's what Sundays are about, beloved. Learning how to stir one another up. We do it in sometimes in crazy ways. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I like our church. I like the way we handle things here. I'm not that I wouldn't like somebody else's church, the way God's doing their lives. Pastor Mike has a dynamic ministry, basically about 7 days a week, something going on in his church. Pastor Mark, I'm sure because of the way their church is set up in the same neighborhood that Pastor Mike's in, cleared out the other end of Derby, but I'm sure he does a lot of the same stuff just by the way the church looks and the people that are in that area. The thing is that we have to get stirred up somewhere. That's part of my job on a Sunday morning. It's part of Joe's job on a Sunday morning. It's part of Vince's job, or whoever's, Aaron, whoever's Jeff, whoever's preaching. Next week it'll be the job of Scott and Libby to stir us up to good works. The week after that it'll be Pastor Jack's job to stir us up to good works. The conference will be the conference Watershed Conference, the third year we've had it, will be the job of each night the pastor preaching to stir us up to good works. And the theme is discipleship this year. It's about being a good disciple and about discipling others. I know where I'm going with that message. I've been working on it for a while. The thing is that with that construct, it's about stirring us up to do the things we're supposed to be doing. It's one thing to go to church and hear a good message that pats you on the back, makes you feel good, and you walk away feeling, well, I'm blessed, and forget whatever was said. But Joe went to great lengths to video, and most every evening, by Sunday evening, I'm not pressing him, but I know most Sunday evenings, especially when he's preached, it's on the internet. I just tease it. The thing is that every time that you have a certain, and you say, well, I'd like to hear that again, or what was that they said, you have an opportunity to do that. We also audio them, so that if you need to get them, they're on our Facebook page, whenever Rob puts them up. But they're on our Facebook page. He's not laughing as hard on that one. The thing is that it's about stirring up good works in us, getting us going the way we need to go. And then in verse 25 says this, and this is the verse that got me thinking yesterday. This is the verse that should be pivotal in our lifestyle today. It says this. It says, not neglecting to meet together as the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and in all the more as you see the day drawing near. Beloved, you can't look at the news, you can't look around us and not see the day drawing near. It is of vital importance that you and I are in fellowship together. I think the King James says, not neglecting fellowship. And I tell people a lot of times, I have most people that I do counseling anymore, if they're not in church or they've been in church, they're not. And one of the things I say, you need to be in church. You need to be a part of a body somewhere to where you're getting stirred up, to where you're getting things that are in you already. And a lot of times, there's an article I pulled off the internet. I actually put it on Facebook. Church should be the one thing that everything else is, my words. Church should be the one thing that everything else is set aside for. In other words, oftentimes people come along, Christians, not us, but a lot of times Christians go, well, it's Sunday, it's my only day off. And so I'll pick on Pastor Rick. When he was working, Caterpillar was notorious for offering him to work on Sunday. I said, really? Is that where you want to be on Sunday? Well, no. But it's good money. I don't care if it's good money or not. God will take care of it. Am I right, Pastor Rick? I picked on him. If he wasn't, I would have said a lot more if he wasn't here, but I just leave it alone. The thing is that our church service is something that should be at the top. It's like tithing. Since we started teaching tithing, and I will tell you, when Debbie and I were coming back from Kentucky, I said, we need to start tithing. And it's been about 10 or 13 years ago, something like that now. She goes, we need to start. I said, well, I don't know how we're going to do it. We're not making it now. And and those words came out of my mouth was, well, if we're not making it now, what difference does it make? Let's tithe. So we started tithing, and all of a sudden we were making it. All of a sudden things were doing right. And since we've been teaching tithing, I believe we're 100% tithing church. Well, the thing is that that's the same with services. You can wake up on, there are Sunday mornings in the spring that are nice and pretty. The birds are chirping, and it's nice out. And I'm going, let's not go today. No, I don't say that. But I have had feelings like that in the past. Not this church, but when I pastored other churches. When I was pastoring a church that's 60 miles away, and I'm thinking, these people don't really want to listen anyway. They're not listening to what's being taught. It was at any rate, the thing is that we got up and we drove that 60 miles. So I'd roll down the windows, we listened to birds chirp while we're there, and stop maybe on the way back for some. The thing is that church should be the most important thing in our life. That's what's going to change us. That's what's going to stoke the coals in us. And that's the whole crux to the middle of this passage here in Hebrews, is he says, not neglecting to meet together as in habit of some. Now, we're not some. We're not the some. But we're the ones that are gathered together. Why? Well, because we want to be encouraged so that we can encourage others. We see the day coming. We want to follow the Lord like we're supposed to. Now, let me just finish here with verse 39. I'm going to drop on down. Maybe sure. Let's do 37. No, let's go to 35. Never mind, we're going to go to 32. 32 says this, but recall the former days when you were enlightened. Think about that. Remember the day you first came to Christ. Remember that exciting moment. I can remember getting saved in our living room, and some people back in the day would joke with us. We got saved watching PTL Club, Jim Baker, and they said, well, I'm not sure you really got saved. But the thing is that I remember that night. But I also remember that I got baptized in the Holy Spirit. We don't talk about that a lot. And here we're a Spirit-filled church, but we don't talk about it a lot. So Lord's just brought that to mind. I remember the day we had gone to Wildlife Prairie Park with my parents. They had a motorhome, so my dad, any time he could get it out, he'd take it out. So we drove over to Wildlife Prairie Park, and I told Debbie, I'm standing. I've got pictures. I can tell you what was going through my mind when this picture was taken of Deb and I standing there. As I'm thinking, I'm going to get back to Pekin tonight if I have to walk back, because I felt that tug. You know, when that tug's coming on you, and it's pulling you, and there's no way you're going to miss. And I get there that night, and I go up. I actually went back, and the way I went back to buy some albums from John Wesley Fletcher and the Colemans. I came back, and they're doing the altar call for Holy Spirit. I dropped them by the pew and went on down and stood in the front thing with Pastor Colin and John Wesley Fletcher were coming. They get up there. They both pray for me. I went down, but nothing's coming out of my mouth. It's like I'm wanting to speak in tongues, but it's not coming out. And so a friend of mine who was in the National Guard with at the time grabs me before I get out of the sanctuary. We're back in the vestibule. He says, "You're not leaving until you speak, until you get the words." And I started praying. He prayed me through, and I got baptized in the Holy Spirit. And I got home that night, and Debbie's going, "What happened? What was going on?" And I really couldn't explain it. But I went up to our bedroom. We never slept in. I went up to our bedroom and laid down in bed, raised my hands, and started praying in tongues again. And the thing is that I had that. I remember that time. Why? Because it ignited something in me different. Well, that's what we want every day in our lives, is to remember. He says, recall the former days when you were enlightened. You endured a hard struggle with suffering, sometimes being publicly exposed to reproach and affliction, and sometimes being partnered with those so treated. But he says, remember those days. Remember the excitement. Remember the fire when you start having a rough day. And then he goes on to verse 34. For you had compassion on those in prison. You were joyfully accepted the plundering of your property, since you knew that you yourselves had even better possessions and an abiding one. Therefore, do not throw away your confidence, which is great reward. Don't throw away the great reward. Don't throw away which is yours. It goes on. Let's drop on down. Kids are getting rowdy back there, so let's go on down. Verse 37. For you may receive what is promised. For yet a little while, and the coming one will come and will not delay. But my righteous one shall live in faith, and if he shrinks back, my soul will not pleasure him. Verse 39. But we are not of those who shrink back or are destroyed, but of those who have faith and preserve our souls. We don't shrink back. As we enter into this year of my time, this year of change, it's not time for us to shrink back. It's time for us to move forward. It's a time for us to continue to remind ourselves of what God's already done in our lives, what He's already called us to do, and how can we strengthen it? How can we get to the point where we know that He's leading every step of the way? Debbie.